Everyone feared the CEO's daughter, until a delivery woman left them all speechless. "If you don't get out of my way in 3 seconds, I'll make sure you never deliver so much as a pizza in this city again." Victoria Ashford's words cut through the lobby of Ashford Technologies like ice blades. Her perfect face was twisted into a mask of contempt while her gray eyes glared at the young black woman standing before her, holding a box of documents with steady hands. 15 employees watched the scene in terrified silence. No one moved. No one breathed. Maya Johnson was 31 years old and had been working as a delivery driver for Express Courier for just 2 weeks. 2 weeks observing every detail of that building. 2 weeks listening to conversations not meant for her ears. 2 weeks swallowing every humiliation with a professional smile that hid something much deeper. During the first week, Victoria had accidentally spilled coffee on the documents Maya had just delivered and demanded that the courier company pay for $3,000 in damages. Maya apologized and cleaned everything up on her knees while Victoria photographed the scene, laughing with her assistants. During the second week, she made Maya wait 4 hours in the freezing lobby before signing a receipt that took 30 seconds. When Maya finally left, she discovered her car had been towed from the visitor parking lot on Victoria's orders. The other employees looked away when it happened. Margaret, the 58-year-old receptionist, covered her mouth with her hands but said nothing. The old security guard at the entrance, a man named Gerald, shook his head silently like someone watching an inevitable accident. No one interfered. No one dared. Victoria Ashford wasn't just the daughter of Raymond Ashford, founder of one of the largest technology companies in the country. She was the executive vice president, the woman who had fired 47 employees in the last year for insubordination. The woman whose gaze made 6-foot security guards instinctively step back. 3 years ago, she had destroyed a logistics manager's career because he parked in a spot she wanted to use. A year later, she had an intern arrested for theft, a sandwich he had brought from home that Victoria claimed was company property. The case lasted 8 months. The kid lost his scholarship. No one ever heard from him again. And now, before all those wide eyes, Maya Johnson did something no employee, vendor, or visitor had ever done in Victoria's 8 years of reign at that company. She didn't move. "With all due respect, Ms. Ashford," Maya said, her voice calm as deep waters, "this delivery is confidential and requires the original recipient's signature. Company protocol requires that I wait." The silence that followed was so dense it seemed to have physical weight. Margaret dropped the pen she was holding. Gerald took an involuntary step backward. Victoria narrowed her eyes, clearly unaccustomed to hearing anything other than immediate submission. She stepped forward, her expensive perfume invading Maya's personal space, so close their breaths almost touched. "Do you know who I am?" Victoria's voice was low now, almost a whisper, which everyone knew was far more dangerous than her shouting. "Do you know what I can do to your pathetic career? With 1 phone call, I shut down this delivery company. With 2, I make sure you never work in Seattle again. With 3. She smiled. "Well, you don't want to find out what happens with 3. Maya held her gaze without flinching. Her heart was pounding, but her eyes remained fixed, unwavering. "I know exactly who you are, Ms. Ashford. I know everything about you." Maya paused deliberately. "The question is, do you know who I am?" For a fraction of a second, so brief that almost no one noticed, something passed through Victoria's eyes. Something that looked like recognition. Or perhaps the first glimmer of fear that arrogant face had shown in years. But it disappeared as quickly as it appeared. "Security!" Victoria shouted, her composure crumbling at the edges. "Remove this woman from my building immediately. And write down her name. I want a trespassing lawsuit on my desk by the end of the day." 2 security guards approached hesitantly. One of them, a middle-aged man named David who always greeted Maya kindly, whispered an apology as he gently held her arm. Maya didn't resist. She let herself be led toward the glass exit, her footsteps echoing on the polished marble. But as she passed the reception desk, she stopped for just an instant and turned her head toward Victoria. "Ask your father about the Horizon Foundation," Maya said, her voice clear enough for everyone to hear. "Ask him what happened in March 2006. Ask him about Denise." The name fell into the lobby like a silent bomb. Victoria went white. Completely white, as if all the blood had drained from her face at once. Her lips trembled, trying to form words that simply wouldn't come. For the first time in years, the most feared woman in that building looked like a frightened child. From the top of the marble staircase, watching everything in sepulchral silence, stood Raymond Ashford. At 67, the patriarch still commanded absolute respect, but his face, usually impassive as stone, showed something different now. There was tension in his jaw, concern in his eyes. And when his gaze briefly met Maya's, there was something more. Recognition. Outside, under Seattle's gray sky, Maya walked to the parking lot with measured steps. Only when she was safely inside her car did her hands begin to shake. She pulled her phone from her pocket and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Aunt Lorraine," she said, her voice finally revealing the emotion she had suppressed. "I'm in." Victoria took the bait. "And her father. He recognized me. I'm sure of it." On the other end of the line, a tired voice laden with decades of pain answered, "Be careful, my child. Victoria is cruel, but she's only a shadow of her father. Raymond Ashford destroyed your mother without losing a night's sleep. He won't hesitate to do the same to you." Maya looked at the imposing glass building that dominated the horizon. In the dark windows, her distorted reflection stared back at her, an ordinary delivery woman, invisible, insignificant in the eyes of the world. "Exactly as planned. That's why I'm here, Auntie. For Mom. For the truth. For everything they took from us." The cold autumn wind swept through the parking lot, making dry leaves dance around the car. Somewhere above, behind those mirrored windows, Maya's new phones were ringing. Orders were being given. Gears were starting to turn. Because Maya Johnson wasn't just a delivery woman. She was the daughter of Denise Johnson, the brilliant lawyer the Ashfords had destroyed 18 years ago. The woman whose name had been erased from the company's history. The woman who, 6 years after leaving prison, lost the will to live. And Maya had waited long enough. The game had begun. 3 days after being expelled from the Ashford Technologies building, Maya was sitting in the small kitchen of her Aunt Lorraine's apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes full of yellowed documents. "Your mother was the most upright person I ever knew," Lorraine said, placing a cup of tea in front of her niece. Her eyes carried the weight of 18 years of forced silence. Denise worked as a corporate lawyer for the Ashfords for 7 years. She knew every secret of that family. Maya picked up a faded photograph. Her mother, young and radiant, stood next to Raymond Ashford at some corporate event. Both were smiling at the camera like old friends. "What happened, Auntie? What really happened in 2006? Lorraine took a deep breath, as if she were about to plunge into dark waters. The Horizon Foundation was created by the Ashfords in 2004. Officially, it helped underprivileged communities gain access to technology. Millions in donations. Charity events. Raymond was celebrated as an exemplary philanthropist. She paused, her fingers tightening around her cup. "Your mother discovered that 70% of that money never reached the beneficiaries. It was diverted to offshore accounts, laundered through shell companies, used to bribe politicians and eliminate competitors. Denise gathered evidence for months. She was about to turn everything over to the FBI. Maya felt her stomach turn. And then Raymond found out. He fabricated evidence that Denise was stealing from the foundation. She was arrested 3 days before her meeting with the feds. She spent 8 months in jail awaiting trial. Lorraine wiped away a tear. When she got out, she was destroyed. No firm would hire her. Friends disappeared. The reputation she had built over 20 years was pulverized in a week. And the evidence she had gathered? Vanished. All of it. As if it had never existed. Maya closed her eyes, letting the pain wash through her completely. She was only 13 years old when her mother was arrested. And 19 when she died. The official version was a heart attack. But Lorraine always knew the truth. Denise had simply given up on living. "Who sent the anonymous letter?" Maya asked. "Who told me about all this after so many years?" "I don't know. But whoever it is has privileged access. The documents that came with it, they're internal. Someone inside Ashford wants to see that family fall as much as we do." That same evening, Maya's phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Johnson. A male voice, formal but not hostile. "My name is Edward. I'm Raymond Ashford's personal assistant. Maya nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Ashford would like to meet with you. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning. The address will be sent by text. He'll be alone. Why should I trust this? There was a pause. Because Mr. Ashford hasn't slept in 3 days. And because he spoke your mother's name for the first time in 18 years. The call ended. Maya stared at the dark phone screen, her heart racing. The next day, she entered a discreet cafe in the Seattle suburbs. Raymond Ashford was already there, at an isolated table in the back. Up close, he looked older than in the corporate photos. More human. More tired. Thank you for coming, he said, indicating the chair across from him. I didn't come out of politeness. I came for answers. Raymond nodded slowly. You really are Denise's daughter. She never wasted words either. You destroyed her life. The old businessman didn't look away. I know. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about it. Maya leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Regret doesn't bring my mother back. It doesn't erase the years I spent in foster care. It doesn't undo anything. No. It doesn't. Raymond lowered his voice. But maybe I can help fix something. He slid a small card across the table. Victoria doesn't know we're talking. She doesn't know many things about me, about the foundation, about what really happened to your mother. He hesitated. My daughter has become a monster, Ms. Johnson. And it's my fault. I raised her to be this way. What exactly are you proposing? Raymond looked out the cafe window, his expression laden with what seemed like decades of accumulated guilt. In my private office, there's a safe. Inside it are all the original documents that proved Denise's innocence and my guilt. I kept them all these years as, I don't know, maybe as punishment for myself. Why didn't you destroy them? Because destroying them would have been too easy. And I deserved to carry that weight. Maya studied the face of the man before her. This wasn't the monolithic villain she had imagined for 18 years. It was something more complex, a man drowning under the weight of his own choices. Why are you telling me this? Why now? Raymond finally met her eyes. Because I'm dying, Ms. Johnson. Cancer. I have less than 6 months. And when I'm gone, Victoria will inherit everything, including the secrets. She'll destroy those documents the same day. And the truth will die with me. Maya felt the air leave her lungs. In 2 weeks, there will be an event at the central office. The celebration of the Horizon Foundation's 20th anniversary. All of Seattle's elite will be there. Raymond pushed the card closer to her. The safe code is on there. What you do with this information is your choice. Meanwhile, at the Ashford Technologies office, Victoria was on the phone with her private lawyer. I want everything on Maya Johnson. Where she was born, where she studied, who her contacts are. And I want to know why my father canceled 3 meetings this week. She hung up and walked to the window, surveying the city at her feet. You think you can threaten me, delivery girl? She murmured to herself. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I destroy people before breakfast. What Victoria didn't know was that at that exact moment, Maya was receiving a second anonymous letter. Inside was a list of names, 12 people who had testified against Denise in 2006. And a handwritten note. 9 of them were paid. 3 were threatened. The 13th witness was never called because she knew too much. Her name is Margaret. She's worked at the building's reception for 22 years. She's waiting for you. Maya reread the paper 3 times. Margaret. The receptionist who covered her mouth with her hands while Victoria humiliated her. The woman who looked away. Maybe it wasn't indifference after all. Maybe it was fear. And maybe, after 2 decades, Margaret was finally ready to talk. 2 weeks later, the main hall of Ashford Technologies sparkled like a palace. Crystal chandeliers poured golden light over 300 distinguished guests, senators, businessmen, celebrities, all gathered to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Horizon Foundation. The irony wasn't lost on Maya, who watched the commotion through a side entrance, dressed in a uniform of the catering staff hired for the event. Margaret had been her key to entry. 3 days earlier, the 58-year-old receptionist had finally broken 2 decades of silence. In a discreet cafe far from downtown, she handed Maya a folder full of documents she had kept hidden in her basement. "Your mother saved me once," Margaret said, her hands trembling. "My son was sick, needed surgery I couldn't afford. Denise paid for it out of her own pocket. Never asked for anything in return. Never told anyone." She wiped her eyes. "When Raymond destroyed her, I wanted to scream the truth to the world. But he threatened me. Said he'd make my son lose his job, that he'd destroy my entire family. So I stayed silent. For 20 years, I stayed silent." Margaret squeezed Maya's hand. "But I can't carry this anymore. I can't die with this guilt. Inside this folder is everything: recordings of meetings, bank transfers, direct orders from Raymond to fabricate evidence against Denise. I copied everything at the time because I knew someday the truth would need to come out." Now Maya walked through the hall with a tray of champagne, invisible as she had always been. The rich never looked at the servants, and that was her greatest advantage. In the inside pocket of her vest was a flash drive with all the digitized documents. In the event sound system, a technician named Jerome, Margaret's cousin, awaited her signal. And in the safe of Raymond's private office, Maya had already been there that afternoon. The code worked perfectly. The original documents were now safe with Lorraine, who waited in a car 3 blocks away, ready to take them to a Seattle Times journalist if anything went wrong. On the improvised stage, Victoria Ashford radiated in a red dress that cost more than Maya would earn in 2 years. She smiled for the cameras, posing next to a giant Horizon Foundation banner. "Welcome, dear friends," Victoria began, her voice amplified by the speakers. 20 years ago, my family created this foundation with a single purpose: to transform lives through technology and hope." Maya felt her stomach turn at the hypocrisy. Today we celebrate 2 decades of impact. Thousands of families helped. Communities transformed. A legacy of generosity That's when the screens behind Victoria flickered. The vice president's smiling face was replaced by spreadsheets. Numbers. Bank transfers. A detailed timeline showing how, over the past 20 years, more than $40 million have been diverted from the foundation to the Ashford family's personal accounts. A shocked murmur rippled through the hall. Victoria turned around, her smile freezing on her face. "What? Turn that off. Turn it off immediately." But the images continued. Now they showed a photograph of Denise Johnson, young and smiling, next to a newspaper headline about her arrest in 2006. Then internal documents proving the charges were fabricated. Emails from Raymond ordering the destruction of evidence. Audio recordings with clearly identifiable voices. "Who's doing this?" Victoria screamed, completely losing her composure. "Security." That's when Maya emerged from the crowd. She walked toward the stage with firm steps, guests instinctively parting to make way. She still wore the waiter's uniform, but there was nothing servile about her posture anymore. "It was me," Maya said, her voice clear and strong even without a microphone. "My name is Maya Johnson. Daughter of Denise Johnson, the woman your family destroyed 18 years ago." The entire hall plunged into absolute silence. Victoria recognized her immediately. "You. The delivery woman." Her voice trembled. "This is lies. All lies. My father will." "Your father is dying of cancer," Maya interrupted, climbing the stage steps. "He has less than 6 months to live. And he's the one who gave me access to the safe where these documents have been kept for 2 decades. Victoria recoiled as if she'd been slapped. "No. My father would never. Your father has carried the guilt of what he did to my mother for 20 years. Unlike you, he still had a conscience." Maya turned to the audience, where dozens of phones were filming every second. "My mother discovered this family's crimes in 2006. That's why she was destroyed. She spent 8 months in prison for a crime she didn't commit. She lost her career, her friends, her dignity. And 6 years later, she lost the will to live." Tears streamed down Maya's face, but her voice remained steady. "I was 13 years old when she was arrested. I grew up in foster homes thinking my mother was a criminal. Only 3 months ago did I discover the truth, thanks to brave people who decided 20 years of silence was long enough." Margaret emerged from among the guests, walking toward the stage with hesitant but determined steps. "I testified against Denise at the trial," the receptionist said, her voice choked. Raymond Ashford forced me. He threatened to destroy my family if I didn't cooperate. I lived 20 years with this guilt. But I can't anymore. Other faces in the crowd began to move. Jerome, the sound technician. David, the security guard who had always treated Maya kindly. Former employees who had carried pieces of the truth in silence for decades. Victoria looked around desperately, searching for an ally. But she found only faces of horror, disgust, and condemnation. "This won't stand," she hissed, pointing at Maya. "My lawyers will." "Your lawyers can't change the truth," said a hoarse voice from the back of the hall. Raymond Ashford walked slowly toward the stage, leaning on a cane. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "Daddy," Victoria ran to him. "Tell them it's a lie. Tell them this woman is making everything up." Raymond looked at his daughter for a long moment. Then gently, he pushed her hands away. "I can't, Victoria. Because everything she said is true." The scream that escaped Victoria wasn't one of anger. It was that of a child discovering the world she knew had never existed. Police sirens began to wail outside. The months that followed completely transformed everyone's fate. Victoria Ashford was arrested that same night, still wearing the red gala dress. The charges included fraud, money laundering, obstruction of justice, and complicity in criminal defamation. Without her father to protect her, without allies willing to risk their own careers, she faced the justice system like any ordinary citizen. The trial lasted 4 months and dominated the national news. Witness after witness took the stand to reveal 2 decades of covered-up crimes. Margaret told her complete story, trembling but determined. Jerome presented recordings he had secretly made over the years. Former employees who had been silenced by fear finally found their voices. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. In the sentencing, the judge declared, the defendant not only stole millions of dollars intended for the most vulnerable. She destroyed innocent lives to protect her greed. Justice, though delayed, cannot be denied. Raymond Ashford passed away 3 months after the event, before the trial even ended. In his final days, he recorded a video deposition confessing all the crimes against Denise Johnson and asking for public forgiveness. The video was shown in court and broadcast to millions of viewers. "I destroyed an innocent woman to protect my reputation," Raymond said, his voice weak but clear. "Denise Johnson was brilliant, upright, and courageous. And I annihilated her because she had the courage I never had. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I only ask that the truth finally be known." The Ashford fortune was partially confiscated. $47 million were allocated to a compensation fund for all the family's victims over the years. The Horizon Foundation was dissolved and recreated under new leadership, with independent audits and complete transparency. Margaret, the receptionist who had guarded the truth for 20 years, was finally able to retire in peace. Maya ensured she received a generous pension from the compensation fund, not as payment, but as recognition of her belated courage. "You could have hated me," Margaret said to Maya the day she received the news. "I testified against your mother. I stayed silent for 2 decades. Maya held her wrinkled hands. "You were afraid. My mother would have understood that. What matters is that when the time came, you chose the truth." 6 months after that night in the Ashford Technologies Hall, Maya stood before a new headstone in a Seattle cemetery. The white marble stone gleamed under the morning sun. The inscription read, "Denise Johnson, beloved mother, lawyer of integrity, innocent forever." The truth was her legacy. Aunt Lorraine stood beside her, holding a bouquet of white lilies, Denise's favorite flowers. "She would be so proud of you," Lorraine whispered, tears streaming silently. "You finished what she couldn't." Maya knelt and touched the cold earth over the grave. "I promised I would find justice, Mom. Not with hatred. Not with blind revenge. But with the truth, the same truth you fought for." The wind blew softly, making the leaves of the surrounding trees whisper like distant voices. And for a moment, Maya could have sworn she felt something warm envelop her. Like a hug. Like a goodbye. Like a thank you. A year later, Maya Johnson stood in a packed auditorium, receiving an investigative journalism award. She had written a book telling her mother's entire story, a bestseller that had inspired thousands of people to confront injustices in their own lives. Many people ask me if it was worth it, Maya said in her speech, looking out at the attentive audience. If facing someone as powerful as Victoria Ashford was worth all the risks. She paused, her eyes finding Lorraine's in the front row. My mother spent the last years of her life believing she was a criminal in the eyes of the world. She died carrying a shame that was never hers. No award, no amount of money can bring her back. Maya raised the trophy. But now, when someone searches the name Denise Johnson, they don't find a thief. They find a hero. A woman who had the courage to face power and paid the highest price for it. Her voice grew stronger. This is the message I want to leave. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how many times they knocked you down. It doesn't matter how powerful your adversary is. The truth is the most powerful weapon there is. And when you use it with courage and integrity, no castle of lies remains standing. The audience rose in applause. And somewhere, in a silent cell of a federal penitentiary, Victoria Ashford watched the broadcast on a small television. Her hands, which once pointed orders at dozens of subordinates, now trembled holding a plastic cup of water. She had spent her entire life destroying people she considered inferior. She accumulated power by stepping on others. And in the end, she had nothing. No money, no influence, not a single person who cared about her. Maya's true victory wasn't putting Victoria in prison. It was proving that the dignity of a simple delivery woman was worth more than the entire Ashford empire. Because in the end, it's not titles or fortunes that define our legacy. It's the truths we choose to fight for. And the people we have the courage to defend. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. Have you ever faced someone who seemed untouchable? What was it like? Because sometimes, destiny just needs a little help from us to do what's right.